So 5.4, we're going to talk about solving compound inequalities. So a compound inequality is when it has an and or an or kind of in it, okay? So with an and, big thing with and is it has to have the solution, has to satisfy, I spelled that wrong. Both inequalities. Alright, so like an example of this would be I have -2 is less than x and x is less than or equal to 3. Okay. How we could also kind of view this is if we push everything together and it has like the -2 is less than x, so I just wrote this, but then x is also less than or equal to 3. Okay, so this is the same thing. This is just written when they're pulled apart. This is written when it's all like pushed together. So what this means is I have my answers from -2, I'll put 0 and 3. So at -2 is going to be an open circle. At 3 it's going to be a closed circle. Okay. -2, just remember it would be like x is greater than, so it's going this way. And then x is less than 3. Okay, so it falls in between there. So if I were to plug in 0, because I shaded in 0, well, -2 is less than 0, that's true. And 0 is less than or equal to 3, that's also true. Okay, so that's what I mean by it has to satisfy both of those solutions. Okay, and or is going to be solutions that can satisfy. Why can't I spell satisfy today? Satisfy one inequality or the other. So example of this, x is less than 0 or x is greater than or equal to 5. Okay, so if I go to graph this, I would have 0, we'll do 3, and then 5. 5 is going to be closed circle, and it's going to be greater than, and then 0 is open, and it's less than. Okay, so any of these answers that are shaded, as long as it fulfills one of the inequalities, it's good. So for example, 6 would be here. Well, 6 is not less than 0, but 6 is greater than or equal to 5, so it does work. Okay, so we're going to solve and inequalities. So you can kind of view this in two different ways. I'll show you guys both ways at first. So you can split this up. So I'd have 10 is less than or equal to 3k minus 2. Okay, so that's one inequality. And then I have the 3k minus 2 is less than 19. So that's where the two inequalities are coming from. Okay? So you'd add 2. This would give me 12 is less than or equal to 3k. Divide by 3. So I'd have 4 is less than or equal to k. Then I would do the same process. I'd add 2. I'd have 3k is less than 21. Divide by 3. So I'd have k is less than 7. Okay? So that is one way. Or you can keep it together, and if I add 2, I have to add 2 to everything. Okay, on like those inequality sides. So this would give me 12. Then I would have 3k, and then 21, which if you look, we have the 21 and the 12. Okay, then I would divide by 3. I would end up with 4 is less than or equal to k, which is what we have right there. And then we have k is less than 7, which is what we have right there. Okay, either of those answers are acceptable. I would accept this or this. Okay, so then when I go to graph this, I'd have 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 is going to be open circle, 4 is closed circle. And then it's greater than 4 and less than 7. Okay, I want you guys to try out, we'll do D and B. Okay, so pause it, and then I want you guys to try those two out. Once you have your answers, you can press play then and see if you got the correct answers. All right, so then what we're gonna do is, first one I'm gonna do is subtract 5. Subtract 5. If I do it to one thing, I have to do it to all like sides. So this would give me -3 is less than x, which is less than 4. Okay, so that's your final answer. If you do have to split it up, I'd have -3 is less than x, and then x is less than 4, which this would give me that x is -3. Okay, go to graph it. I'm gonna have -3, 0, and 4. You just have to have at least one number kind of in the middle just to indicate the correct counting or whatever. Both gonna be open circles. So x is greater than -3 and less than -4, or +4, sorry. All right, so then for D, I'm gonna add 1 to both sides. This gives me -6 is less than -7, or sorry, -z, which is less than 4. Okay, then I'm gonna divide by a -1. So I would have 6, I divided by a negative, so let's see how many of you guys remember to flip it. And then z, and then flip it to -4, okay? So the only thing is, usually when you write compound inequalities, you have to have your smallest number to the left and then the highest number to the right. So I'm gonna just rewrite this as -4 is less than or equal to z, which is less than or equal to 6. Okay. If you did split it up, you'd have -4 is less than z, and then z is less than 6. Okay, so I'd have -4, 0, and 6. Open circles for both of them, and then we're shading in the middle. All right, so those are my and inequalities, or compound inequalities. We're gonna talk about the or compound inequalities, okay? So looking at A, we're just gonna solve each inequality separately. So I'm gonna subtract 3. This would give me x is less than -1. Then I'm gonna divide by -1. So I'd have x is greater than or equal to 4. So I'm gonna graph this. So I'm gonna have -1, sorry about that, 0 and 4. Okay, so the 4 is gonna be closed circle, and it is going to be greater than. And then I have the -1, and it's less than. Let's see, which ones do I want you to do? I'm gonna have you guys try out, we'll just do B, and then we'll say that should be good. Okay, so for B, I'm gonna subtract 3. I'm gonna have 2x is less than 6. Divide by 2, I have x being less than 3. Or, I'm gonna add 6, so I have 3x is greater than 18. Divide by 3. So x would be greater than 6. And when I go to graph, I have 3, 4, 5, 6 open circles. It's gonna be less than 3 or greater than 6. Okay, so nothing really anything different for the ors. Now you're just kind of graphing them on the same line. Okay. So then the last thing we're gonna look at is example 3. With this, it's just having words, and then we're gonna have to write them as compound inequalities, okay? So all numbers that are greater than -2 and less than 3. So we have an and, so we know it's gonna be kind of like pushed together. Okay, so we know it's -2, and x has to be greater than -2. Okay, so if you wanna kind of view it, x has to be greater than -2. And then x also has to be less than 3. Okay, so then we're gonna rewrite it. So the -2 and then x, so kind of what I did here. Okay, so I just flipped the order. So now we can put the x's together. So I have that, then I'm gonna have x is less than 3. So that is your compound inequality. When I go to graph this, I have -2, I have 0 and 3. Open circles for both. And then I have it in between those. So it's gotta be greater than -2 and then less than 3. Okay, I want you to try out B. So this is an OR one, so you're not gonna write it together. So you're gonna have 2 separate ones and then see what you get. All right, so all numbers that are less than 0, so we know x has to be less than 0, or x has to be greater than or equal to 2. Okay. So then I have 0, 1, 2. My 2 is closed circle. My 0 is an open circle. X is greater than 2 and less than 0. All right, so that is 5.4 notes.